Mauritius, one of the most dynamic economies in Africa, a success story of political, social and financial stability. Think about it. We had nothing, no minerals, no oil or precious stones. So what made this success? You won't find it here or here. Come closer. It's a story about people.
If you ever call my name, I will answer.
It's about our openness. It's in our DNA, proud of the multicultural origins of our people from Europe, Africa and Asia. Our capacity to live and work together, our agility to do business with the world, our entrepreneurial drive and resilience define who we are. We are MCB.
You're stranded in the rain, I will shelter.
And in financial news, the unique global offer in financial expertise of MCB, the leading bank of Mauritius since 1838, has made them one of a few investment-grade banks in Africa, weighing in an over $2 billion capitalization.
And just like Mauritius, our real value lies in our people and in our commitment.
If you ever call my name, I will answer.
Today, our natural openness to the world allows us to empower new ventures in Africa and beyond. Our unique global perspective opens endless possibilities for international business.
Africa Forward Together. Thank you for joining us today for our second webinar, which will focus on a topic which I'm sure is very high on all of our agendas, a perspective of digitalization. You collectively highlighted this topic in the AFT survey, and it was touched upon briefly during our first webinar last Tuesday. Thank you for your feedback and questions during that webinar, and please keep them coming throughout today's webinar at any time. Today we tackle a major preoccupation for financial institutions in Africa and across the world, which has been a cause for quite a few headaches and budgetary shocks, I'm sure. Banks are grappling with the cost and complexity of digitalization, which should be distinguished from the simple digitization of processes and operations, and of our business, of course. Our objective today is simple: to provide insights on this subject from two leaders who have an extensive track record in accompanying African banks in this journey. I'm very pleased today to welcome and introduce Jean-Michel Félix, a seasoned professional with a rich career under his belt that has taken him in across 41 countries. He is the founder CEO of MCB Consulting Services, and he and his team there have led over 500 successful assignments in over 37 countries, including 25 in Africa. This included the recent go-live of Orange Bank Africa, whom we had the pleasure of welcoming last Tuesday as the keynote speakers for the first webinar of AFT. Jean-Michel is also the brain behind MCB Institute of Finance, a company focused today on the training needs of African banks and financial institutions. I'm very pleased also today to introduce and welcome Khevin Seebah, the CEO of ICPS Limited, a joint venture between MCB and High-Tech Payment Services, HPS, a payment software company based in Morocco. ICPS today is one of the leading regional payment enablers in areas including processing, back office operations, card personalization, IT security, and consultancy. So today Jean-Michel and Khevin will present a perspective of digitalization across the value chain, including security and integration strategy. Thank you, and over to you, Jean-Michel.
Thank you for this introduction. Indeed, we're going to cover some important aspects when we embark ourselves onto a digitalization strategy. Notably, the need to get the strategy right, some critical success factors, and my friend Khevin will cover two very, very important aspects, open banking and the cyber security, which is totally on top of our mind when we talk about digitalization. In fact, this was one of the subjects that keep Alain Lomin, lead to sleepless nights of Alain Lomin, in fact. So without further ado, a quick presentation of MCB Consulting. We were created 6 years ago in the aftermath, in fact, of a major transformation program of the MCB Group. And as a consulting company, we focus on 4 main pillars: people, process, strategy, and technology. These 4 areas are in fact applicable to any company of any particular industry. But MCB Consulting has a niche market, the financial sector, because in fact of its 3-dimensional perspective. Being a user of the solutions that we propose to our clients, in fact, we only propose solutions that have worked with satisfaction within the MCB Group. Secondly, we come from a banking background. More than 40% of our staff have had a spell in banking. Then, obviously, thanks to the different partnership agreements that we have, we are accredited implementers of a number of solutions. And a quick overview on the different type of partnerships that we have. Genium, and I'm going to talk about it later on in the presentation. Azure Digital, which focuses on the customer's experience. Dynamis, which is a company based in Europe, which focuses on automated testing. IMS, which helps us automating correspondences to the clients. Temenos, leading core banking software provider in the world. And EY, one of the big 4 with whom we've signed up a partnership agreement and with whom we work on some specific assignments. Over the last 6 years, in fact, we've covered, as mentioned into the introduction, 37 different countries, and obviously the majority being on our mainland Africa. Carried out 500 assignments with the help of our passionate workforce, coming from different cultures and countries. Let's talk now about digitalization itself. About some specific challenges of the financial sector which should help us, in fact, derive the appropriate digitalization strategy. We have incremental needs and sophisticated requirements from different customers, linked obviously to different generations. We have the emergence of new non-banking customers. OBA was present in our first webinar, and you've seen how disruptive OBA will be for the banking sector in Africa. The challenge in the use of banking services, which obviously depends a lot on the sophistication of our infrastructure, evolving regulatory framework. And watch the space. We know it's not going to get better. We will have more and more regulations that will have to be applied very speedily and which will get more complicated. We've all faced the multiple impacts of the COVID-19, and we are still facing them. We have the need to go for new talents with sometimes very, very different requirements in terms of what they would need as an employee, what they would expect you as an employer. I'm sure you face this, Khevin. Some digital insights which for me are very important to table, because we should avoid in our digitalization strategy a copy and paste approach. Look at these statistics. The worldwide average talks about a 59% penetration of internet users, whilst on our mainland Africa, this figure is only 34, and in Mauritius, 68. But where Africa is well beyond the worldwide average is in terms of the mobile banking, mobile users, 81% penetration compared to 150 for Mauritius and only 66 worldwide. Our African reality, obviously a continent full of potential. with a particular type of population. 60% of our population is today below 25 years. And by 2050, we expect 2 billion inhabitants on our mainland. But yet, it is a continent with huge challenges, sometimes very rudimentary one. Access to tap water and electricity, limited availability of food, unequal chances to education. We've seen very recently during the lockdown how the homeschooling has had its limits because of inability and no access to internet, for example. Deficiency of the health system. I was reading very recently that due to the lockdown, a vast vaccination program has not happened on mainland Africa. And we can expect some millions of dead people within the next couple of years because of this lack of vaccination. Let's talk a bit about how we get engaged into this digitalization journey. First, do you have a well-defined strategy? Too often, and you've seen this, Khevin, companies will go and acquire technology without thinking that technology can only act as a business enabler. So you need to know where you're going before equipping yourself with the right tools. So do you want to digitize or do you want to transform your business, right? And do you want to do this not just from a customer's experience perspective, but across the value chain, taking into consideration your back office, your support functions, and also obviously the front. Very, very often I see a lot of emphasis on the customer's experience, which is totally right, but at the same time, other aspects of the business should not be ignored. So, do you go for the strategic pillars of digitalization? Do you want, for example, through digitalization, to increase your profitability, the rate of return that would be expected from your board, from your main shareholders? Do you want to improve operational efficiency, to enhance customers' experience, to better risk management in a heavily regulated environment, and in an environment where there are different types of risks that we need to curb, to mitigate? For us, African, do we want to reduce the unserved market? Think about the statistics. One African out of 10 has a bank account. And all these strategic pillars, these objectives from a digitalization strategy perspective, should address the different needs of our customers who come from distinct segments. Risk, so linked to strategy, and risk management, which should not be disconnected with strategy setting. How do we identify the new risks? How do we assess them? How do we prioritize actions that need to be put in place to mitigate these risks? There's risks which can be the classic ones: creditworthiness, KYC, but which will also entail a new breed of risk. Some would say that change management is not a new type of risk, but too often in transformation program, we focus on the hardware, the software, but we forget the hardware. So what about this astute change management strategy, which is necessary to succeed in any transformation program? What about cybercrime? And this is one of the reasons I've asked Khevin to help me in this presentation. He will have a zoom on this particular type of risk, which cannot be ignored. If ignored, the whole digitalization strategy can fail. Let's look also at some technological considerations. Some major trends first. Some years back, we were talking about fintechs being competitors to banks. Today, we talk about collaboration between fintechs and financial institutions. We also talk about the API economy. How do we use this for monetization and digitalization of our value chain? We talk also about banks offering their platforms to fintechs, a true illustration of collaboration. Khevin will talk lengthily about cybersecurity. Cloud. Some months back, before the lockdown, we MCB Consulting carried out a survey with our customers, asking them about their appetite for cloud services. And we did believe that we should carry out this survey just after the lockdown, and we did. And the results are quite contrasting. The appetite for cloud with the lockdown has increased significantly. We all talk about data, but we talk about usage of technology, AI, ML, machine learning, to transform data into information. Obviously, what sort of data do we need? Blockchain. There are some niche areas where blockchain will definitely, or has, transformed banking, and the best is yet to come. RegTech. Some companies, some financial institutions will decide to insource, to build capacity around things like KYC management, credit scoring for the usage of artificial intelligence and machine learning. But some will decide to outsource to very specialized firms. The objective, in fact, is to capitalize on the best of breed and to increase the go-to-market strategy, but also to remain focused on what really matters, that is their customers. We talk about the usage of RPA, and I've got a slide which will, in my humble opinion, explains where and when RPA should come into the digitalization strategy. 80% of executives on the mainland Africa will believe that the 5G will transform banking very soon. So, getting into a bit of more details on this technological aspect. I've talked about the copy and paste. I've talked about the different realities of different continents. Africa innovates at its own pace, and it works. My 80 years old mom can go on YouTube, can WhatsApp. She can use SMS, but she will probably never use internet banking. So we need, in fact, to capitalize on this whole ecosystem of possibilities to serve the different needs of our customers. They are of different generations. The different layers, in fact, that we might consider from a deployment strategy perspective. Obviously, a lot do focus on UX and digital talents, which is right. These will interact with third-party applications, whether they are from the central bank, whether they are from different institutions, or whether, as mentioned earlier, with RegTechs. But there are also two layers, and two very, very important layers. And probably this is where organizations can derive the competitive advantage. Maybe the question is, do we go for off-the-shelf UX digital channels and rather build capacity around integration and adaptation layer instead of trying to develop something internally around UX and digital channels? And this integration and adaptation layer through APIs and web server should obviously interface with the core banking system, which should remain as the single source of truth. This core banking system could be on-premise or could be on cloud, as OBA has demonstrated on Tuesday. Beyond the core banking system, we can have also other support applications like BI, CRM, ERP. And all these are important factors to take into consideration in the deployment of our digitalization strategy. So, Khevin, I would like you to share with us some specific pointers around open banking.
Thank you, Jean-Michel. And thank you for having me on this webinar. I'm very pleased to be next to you to talk about digitalization. It's true that digitalization is something which is the talk of the town, but I would just like to remind that digitalization is a set of things. And I'm going to touch base on only two aspects of it: open banking, API, and then the challenges that we can face with regards to open banking and APIs, and which you touched base earlier about cybersecurity. So allow me first of all just to quote two gentlemen. The first one is the group CEO of LinkedIn, who said that technological innovations will be at the heart and blood of banking industry for many years to come, and if big banks do not make the most of it, the new players from fintech and large technology companies surely will. This has been said in 2016. In 2018, the board advisor of Booking.com, Arvind Sankaran, said, "We are witnessing the creative destruction of financial services, rearranging itself around the consumer. Who does this in the most relevant, exciting way using data and digital wins?" Very powerful. But like I said, this has been said a couple of years back. But open banking and APIs have been existing for decades. And let me just try to demystify it so that people and our audience will understand clearly what is API, what is open banking. So API is just a technology actually, right? And open banking leverage on that technology today to offer a multitude of possibilities for external parties to be able to access data. So open banking in itself, it's not about only free data being able to circulate, it's also about a change in the behaviors and attitude in a more holistic strategy, right? But the myth around open banking and API is open banking safe? And the answer, we already have it with Gdpr, for example. Is open banking a new phenomenon? Since 2007, PSD, so for those who don't know PSD, the Payment Service Provider Directive, which came from Europe in 2007, which has been amended in 2018, and which is now a reality in Europe, is the exact open banking that has been implemented and which other countries now are trying to implement. And then, obviously, you talk about APIs earlier. Is this an innovation? Yes, maybe in the format that it is today, but it has existed through different types of names previously, and in the 1990s, actually, under the name of remote procedure call, right? So what I'm trying to say here is we've got open banking, we've got the technology, but at the end of the day, it's the user experience that is going to change, right? And if you look at the customer experience today, I'm going to cover 4 areas. So the first one is how users will be able to have a great access of products in terms of financial services with open banking. So data is going to flow, people will have more products, and by developing, number 2, the user-friendly interface to all those people who will be able to access it, is going to be powerful. But the exciting part of it is really about the underserved market. And when you take open banking with the powerful technology of API and you put it in an interoperable ecosystem, it offers more possibilities. And that's where actually you are able to deliver more services to more people, and you were referring to your mom, 80 years old, having access to all type of products now at the tip of her hands in her mobile, because she can't use internet banking, right? It's going to be something very interesting for the users. So let me just, if you allow me, Jean-Michel, share 2 use cases, or if you want to call it success story, right? Which ICPS has implemented actually for the past years in Africa. The first one is around instant issuing, right? And you will understand the powerful usage of APIs which has allowed us to be able to implement the instant issuing solution at ICPS. So let me just take the case of a couple of years back. Jean-Michel, you go into a branch and you want to order a card, be it a debit card or a credit card. You walk in and you ask for a card and you fill the form and they will tell you, come after a couple of days and you will get your card. What we've done with API today, you walk in to the branch. You order your card instantly. In the background, we do all the work with APIs, and we do the sale of the card, and the customer is able to walk out with the card in its hand and do the PIN selection, able to transact instantly.
Within minutes, in fact, this is
Within minutes, where it would have taken previously days for you to be able to get the card in your hand. So that was the first case that we've done, and we've done this actually for some banks in Africa, and Seebah as well is using this today. But the second success story is around mobile. We all know, and you've mentioned it, you've shown some statistics quite interesting about penetration of mobile in Africa. With mobile today, you can integrate all the apps with the card management system, with the core banking system, and other peripherals that you can imagine. And what we did actually in Kenya was really about giving a lot of functionalities which were actually being done in the back office unit, which now the customer can control from the mobile device. One of the examples was having the card virtualized in the application, on the mobile application. And then you could obviously activate the card, manage the card. If you have a multi-currency card into your wallet, you could do the wallet swapping in terms of currency. So these are all the functionalities that we've developed, and thanks to API, which have helped us today to be able to accelerate the digitalization process. Having said that, the challenge remains about cybersecurity. We cannot not talking about cybersecurity when technology is evolving. And actually, I was sharing with Jean-Michel just before we start that webinar that yesterday itself in Uganda, there has been a hacking of billions of shillings on mobile devices, which is disastrous. And now with open banking, with APIs being exposed, you will see that with data open, hackers will try to get those data. Online banking application with phishing today is a major target for hackers and scammers. APIs, we've been talking about that new technology, but all technologies have to be secured. If you do not secure that technology, people will be able to inject codes inside the development that you've done and try to hack your account. And obviously the privacy and the security. And that's where Gdpr comes, and I will be talking about it a little bit later in my slide. So the risk for me, if you want me to summarize it, would be on 4 aspects. The first one would be about apps and mobile, and the example that I've given to you in Uganda is a real case. Advertising and click fraud and spyware are going to be the main challenges. On the user side, phishing attacks will definitely be impacting by getting credentials via emails. And just to give you a real case of what we've seen, Krelin Bank in Belgium lost approximately 70 million euro in 2016. More than that, if you take APIs now, which is the buzz, if hackers or scammers get your credential and your password, they can abuse from it. And real cases, Salesforce, APIs was exposed with customer contact details hacked. And Sony with PlayStation in 2014 attacked. And last but not least, fintechs. They are going to be part of that ecosystem, right? And hackers will find an opportunity here to get into those companies who are not secured actually, and try to see what they can get out of it. Example, real cases, 2005, 2019, hackers have stolen data of more than 15 million individuals. Capital One.
So the due diligence that banks need to undertake when they go for this banking as a platform strategy is super important. Getting the right partner is key.
Now, I'm just scaring people with what I've said. But there are solutions. And what do we need to do? Actually, and it's very important, and I had that conversation with you, Jean-Michel, I think it's very important that C-levels people try to convince their board that fundamentally we are now exposed and cybersecurity is part and parcel of the whole strategy of a company. We cannot live without cybersecurity. So we have to put further controls. So how to do it? You have all the existing regulatory framework today, which you need to assess, but for assessing this, you need to have experts to be able to accompany you. Very important, develop partnership, and in terms of strategy on the capability, either you in-source or you outsource this activity. And the hardcore controls that we need to put in place, GDPR is one of them. We have to follow GDPR now. But the two-factor authentication is also another possibility of implementing controls. But the most important thing, I think, is once you've done all this and you have the buy-in of your board, is about control, monitoring, education of different segments in the bank, but also outside the bank. It's very important. Let me just share, to conclude, about what has been published in the Nielsen report. And I would just like to precise here that it was related only to payments. Nielsen report published cybercrime losses to reach 200 billion by 2024. As I'm speaking to you, 2019, it was less than 50 billion. Can you imagine? In a couple of years, it will be triple or quadruple of what we're saying here. So I think, I just hope, Jean-Michel, I've been able to share a little bit of what open banking, what cybersecurity challenges will have on open banking in line with the digitalization that we're speaking here.
Yeah. In fact, looking at the threats, but also, and more importantly, about the opportunities, because it's about finding the right balance.
Absolutely.
So let's look now, Khevin, about some additional critical success factors, which I believe should be taken into consideration when trying to succeed in the digitalization transformation program. You've talked about technology, I've talked about technology, but we know also that people matter. And having an astute change management strategy is so important. Not going for a big bang, but perhaps going for a success breeds success approach. Small wins will bring bigger wins. So, to establish this astute change management strategy, I often refer, in fact, to this formula, which is unfortunately not mine, but I do believe in it truly. So we need to understand the need for change. We need to be able to communicate this need for change. And we need also to take into consideration the current reality. You have different segments of your customers. Not everyone will be technologically savvy, but that doesn't mean that they will not embrace new technology. There's a need to educate. We know that only change is constant, but we know also a reality of change. There will always be resistance. So the idea is not to try to eliminate resistance, because this cannot happen, but the idea is to mitigate the impact of resistance. So by clearly focusing on, one, understanding the need for change, communicating this need for change. What's in there for you, customer? What's in there for you, employees? What's in there for you, board of directors? What's in there for you, shareholders? Taking the current reality and then building the appropriate transition plan. So do not necessarily go for a big bang, go rather for a success breeds success approach. Let's also look at the second critical success factor. I took this because I often see that companies, irrespective of the sector, do invest in the appropriate technology. But what happens very often is that they try to do new with old habits. That is, they try to customize the newly bought system with their bad or good old habits, which are epitomized in a procedure manual. So my thoughts around this: get again the strategy of a business process re-engineering right. Know what you want to achieve in business process re-engineering, because there could be conflicting rules. If you want to improve, enhance customers' experience, So you also need to take into consideration risk management, because you are a sector, if you operate within the financial sector, heavily regulated. You cannot cut all the KYC principles or procedures. So get the strategy right. Then the second step would be identify per type of objective, whether it is risk management, operational efficiency, profitability, the appropriate or relevant, pertinent process that support this strategy. Since you bought this new piece of technology, compare your as-is processes with the inbuilt system possibilities. You have not bought this state-of-the-art technology to tweak it or to become a software company. You want to try to leverage on the best of breed and what has happened elsewhere, what has worked elsewhere. So compare your as-is processes. Look for opportunities to tap into the system embedded functionalities, to reduce your level of customization, to streamline your processes.
Mistakes that from banks.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Then you go for the redesign, because again, we are a heavily regulated industry, because we need to document this, because we will need to cascade this down to stuff. You redesign, you document the to-be information and processing flows. And this is when, only when, you should get RPA in place. Do not try to use RPA as a sophisticated, as just a piece of technology, because this RPA concept will not work if your business principles, business rules have not been identified, have not been nailed down, have not been agreed upon. RPA, return on investment RPA, goes through an appropriate business rule. Just imagine you buy an RPA to help you with false positives in the compliance world. But if you've not set to right rules, what will happen to the RPA? So get your process right, see the possibilities that there are in your core system, whether they are card system or core banking system or ERP, streamline your processes, then you get your RPA on the deltas, what can be automated, right? And obviously I'll come back to this leitmotif: staff, train, educate, but also evaluate. Make sure that when before any rollout, you've ensured that the staff have been well trained, have mastered the opportunities that are provided through the new pieces of technology, that have understood how to use these new pieces of technology to ensure a proper return on investment. And we've got a tool, as I mentioned it earlier, Jean-Michel, and I know you use it also within ICPS on your different deployments. Things that we've clearly seen during this lockdown and the need to work from home is that the work from home cannot work, in fact, without the appropriate technology. So some companies have invested a lot into technology because of the lockdown. Some more proactive companies had invested into technology well before the lockdown, right? Why would you not give, for example, a laptop to an admin staff? Or would you say that because this is an admin staff, you will just give the person a PC? So these are sometimes myths, simple myths, but providing laptops to everyone will enable inevitably people to work from home. But we've seen also the work from home, and Alain has talked about it on Tuesday. We talk about on-premise, we talk about work from home, but maybe the best fit is somewhere between the hybrid model. Exactly, Khevin. 9 projects out of 10 fail because of inappropriate training. Either the training strategy has been wrong, or people did not follow the training. So with this quest for digitalization, with the impact of COVID, the lockdown, and the new norm, there's a clear need to go for different skill sets, but also new medium, new ways of training people. During the lockdown, has your company gone through training, or because we were unable to do on-premise training, there was no training for 3 months? So had you had an e-learning platform, you would have been able to continue the training and to make good use of this lockdown to better the skill set of your people, to get them prepared for this new norm. And all this, obviously, right training will increase the probability of an increased ROI. So within MCB Consulting, we've got this solution that we discovered 10 years ago when we were going through a transformation program. It's from India, and it enables us to do e-documents, e-processes, e-evaluation, e-training, but also e-risk management. We even have a module which enables the enterprise risk management framework to be digitalized. Within MCB, a few years back, we had this idea of creating an Institute of Finance because we knew that there was a disconnect between the battlefield reality and the offers of the market. And we created MCB Institute of Finance, which was launched last year, more precisely 18 months ago. And within MCB IF, we have a blend, in fact, of both in-class and online courses, tackling very important subjects like digitalization, leadership, and thanks to, in fact, our carefully selected partners. Again, partnership strategy. We have, amongst others, Mauritius, RBA, and Paris 2 from France. And this enables us, in fact, to have a wide range of training courses that we've identified with our partner, also Unicity, a major player in the education sector in Mauritius, to offer, to close a gap on the market. So some concluding comments from my perspective. Strategy first, and then technology. Avoid the cliche of copy and pasting, right? Because each company might have a different segment, might have different needs for its customer segment. So yes, leverage on the best practices, leverage on what is done elsewhere, but do not copy and paste. There's also, and I'm sure you've come across this, the focus on the US, the customer's experience, the digital channels, is at the detriment of a solid foundation. Yeah. So the good old habits, the digitalization strategy also goes through the back end. Yeah. Do not forget this. We've talked quite lengthily about the value chain. Seek opportunities of optimization, of better risk management, of revenue enhancement, of better training your staff throughout your value chain, whether it is your support functions, your middle office. We need to take into consideration perhaps the possibilities of ERP, of a BI, of an appropriate CRM, not just the customer's experience, which will make a difference. People, hardware, again, identifying the talents that you need to drive you forward, because the realities of the market are different. The customers' requirements are different. They are more and more sophisticated. They come from different generations. So you need a different blend of talent to be able to also establish the relevant training program for those who are already there. Reskilling, upskilling, the change management strategy, taking into consideration the new types of risks, which are threats, yes, but which can also present opportunities in order to ensure that the rate of return targeted is achieved. So thank you very much. Thank you, Khevin, for your help in this presentation.
Jean-Michel.
Many thanks to you, Jean-Michel and Khevin, for these insights, and I hope these have been useful and insightful for you, our audience, watching us. So if you have any additional questions or comments, please do not hesitate to submit them through the platform, but we do have a couple already, so let's have a look at them. If we could just have them displayed, I will read them out. Okay, so we have a first question on the role of the back end. So to what extent is the back end crucial in a digitalization process? Gentlemen?
I'll take this question.
All right.
In fact, my emphasis is on the value chain, not just on the back end or the front end. And any organization should be asking itself the following question: where are my opportunities across the value chain? That's my first answer. My second answer is that however good your front end is, if your back end doesn't follow, the entire value chain will fail. So the key thing is to be analyzing the opportunities, flaws, and risks across the value chain, so that the necessary emphasis is put on the particular piece of the puzzle which will really matter. And every organization will have a different positioning of the importance of the back end or the front end, but the value chain, the perspective of the value chain is the key here.
It's fundamental.
Thank you, Jean-Michel. We do have another question regarding training, actually. So the question is, what is the value added of MCB Institute of Finance in the new normal?
Okay, I believe that there are perhaps a couple of factors that will bring additional value to the market. It's firstly this blend of online and in-class. Secondly, the partners that are working with MCB Institute of Finance, and these partners include Ivy League universities in US, and thirdly, in fact, it will be the type of courses that we offer. And on this particular aspect, we have the off-the-shelf courses of these Ivy League universities, touching on subjects like leadership, digitalization, design thinking. But we also, with Paris Assas, for example, have crafted, with the help of two of my colleagues of MCB Group, a unique executive master in banking and finance, which will be launched in February 2021, which in fact has been drafted in the light of the opportunities, difficulties of the African continent, that will offer this mix of both online and on-premise courses. So clearly, from my perspective, I see MCB-IF again bridging a gap, offering a tailored approach to training, and making sure that at the end of the day, we don't follow courses just for the sake of following courses. That one, the employee gets its appropriate return on investment, and that the employer also get a uplifted skill set from this particular employee, then leading to increased productivity, better customer service, and the rest.
And if I may add, Jean-Michel, I think it's a massive opportunity for students, and if we take the case of the COVID for the moment where students cannot travel,
absolutely,
you have a platform here where you can offer a lot of possibilities in terms of courses. Right?
And one of the courses one of the partners that MCB-IF is RBA, Retail Banking Academy, which offers predominantly online courses. But one of the entry criteria is, in fact, working experience, not only academic qualifications. So those guys who've not been lucky enough after their A-level, the secondary schooling, to go to university, it's a unique opportunity. Try to make good use of your potential lockdown and the inability to be on premise, or the time that you save in transport because you're working from home.
Thank you, Jean-Michel and Khevin. Very pertinent indeed. We do have a couple of more questions. So the next one is, why is it important to have a value chain strategy?
In fact, I've touched on it when answering the first question. We need to look at all the pieces of the puzzle, basically, before deciding on which piece do we place focus in order to achieve the strategic objectives. Do we want to have enhanced revenue? Do we need to improve the customer's experience? Do we want to better risk management? Do we want to improve profitability? So the value chain perspective before zooming or making a dip on the appropriate technology is super important.
It cannot be siloed.
It cannot be siloed, absolutely.
Thank you. Oh, we are getting the questions correctly. So we have another question with respect to GDPR. So how does Mauritius prepare itself with respect to GDPR?
I'll take that question if you want.
Absolutely.
Irene. So, well, we are quite advanced in Mauritius when you take the Data Protection Act, which has been amended and acted in Mauritius. It's pretty much similar to what GDPR is today. And I must say that we are quite advanced. But not only Mauritius, there are some countries also in Africa which are quite advanced now in terms of Data Protection Act. So GDPR is a reality in Mauritius, and I know that many companies like us have already started to implement GDPR. We are in the process of finalizing at ICPS, and I know that within the group MCB, it's something which is going to happen very soon. So we are ready with GDPR.
Thank you, Khevin. We have a question regarding what is the secret for MNOs and banks to collaborate?
I'll give my email address to that person. Well, I believe that this is trust is very important. It's like in any relationship, trust is very important. We've talked a number of times, in fact, during this presentation, Khevin, about the due diligence, finding the right partner from a cultural perspective, from a technical perspective, but a partner that will also close the gaps. So there are, in fact, there's no one secret. There are many factors that need to be taken into consideration for enabling an informed decision and the right decision.
And I think collaboration is important. At some point in time, it will happen. I just hope not. One of them will die. So better having that collaboration with MNOs today, banking and MNOs, to make a better environment, a better ecosystem.
Thank you, Khevin. We're getting the question in fast and hot, so I'm just, well, let's try and get through as many of them as possible. So we have a comment regarding training and MCBIF. So the comment is, it's a very good discussion and valid point raised today during the webinar. Our delegate says that I totally agree with training, but I have seen that training does not get high value from senior management. And I think they require lots of training for reskilling the digitalization. Do you have a comment on that, Jean-Michel or Khevin?
Yes. Look, we need to face the reality also. With this lockdown, with the COVID situation, companies are making less profits. Therefore, the most natural thing to do is to cut costs and perhaps to curb a bit of investment in marketing budgets, in training. But the call here is that, albeit this difficulty, which is recognized, this is the time to invest, because we need to reskill our people, because we need our people to be ready for the new norm, because the pace of change is so fast and sometimes furious. So training is not an item we should be cutting. The person who raised this question is right to say that, in general, unfortunately, and I would put it rather than this, we look at training more like a percentage of our expenses rather than a real investment.
The value that you will get out of it.
For our people and the appropriate return. So when investing into training, we obviously need to know what sort of training do we need? What are the business needs that will be addressed with these training courses? And what do we expect as return on investment? And how do we track this return on investment? Do we factor into our objective setting the training courses, but also the expected change in behavior or performance? So clearly, it's not a one-man show. It's not just an HR problem. It's an organization issue. And the tone should come at the top, making sure that, yes, albeit the difficulties that we are facing, we are still investing in training, but training that does matter, that will bring our organization to new heights.
Thank you, Jean-Michel, for this comment. We have another question regarding how do you balance digitalization versus risk policies and regulatory requirements?
Okay. Well, first of all, managing a business is about managing business risks. Okay. When you work in a financial sector or a bank, the rate of interest, in fact, is a true reflection of the risk. So risk is part of our life. We should not be distinguishing, in fact, strategy and risk management. They are connected with each other. Sometimes there's an iteration process between the two. So I don't think they are disconnected. I think we should relate the two. And there will be a trade-off, definitely. A trade-off that could be explained by limitable budgets, a trade-off by our ability to build capacity, a trade-off limited by maybe finding the right partners. But the key is about what do we expect as return on investment, so that we do make sure that we put in place what could be done in the current context, given our means, given our people, to attain this return on investment. And a clear caveat in this framework is regulatory requirements, because we will not be able to do whatever we want. We are governed by a framework. So this is one of the top items that need to be considered whilst developing, crafting and implementing a digitalization strategy.
Thank you, Jean-Michel. We have time for one last question on operational excellence. So the question is as follows. Operational excellence is what banks are targeting, and technology is only a part of it, which is very true. What are the easy and quick wins to achieve operational excellence?
So really to come back to this leitmotif about value chain. When you look at operational excellence, you need to look at the value chain, because there's no point to reduce drastically the number of minutes or hours you've been talking, or days you've been talking in branches, if ever customers do still come into branches, but then the back office work will supersede the benefits of having reduced this particular aspect of the process. So when we talk about operational excellence, we need to look at it at a value chain perspective. The second piece of the puzzle, is not a secret, but it's a critical success factors, is make sure that the technology chosen is the right technology and that it acts as a business enabler. The third thing would be definitely training again. You change your process, you change your technology, but if you don't train the people, you will not get the return on investment. The fourth thing that I would say is that whenever there's a change in process that impact customers, make sure that these changes have been communicated properly to the customers, that you've embarked your customers maybe in this journey, maybe through some surveys, seeking feedback with your top-notch customers, just to make sure that you talk about it in a silo. You look also at the external world, and you communicate to these customers the changes that are being brought for their betterment.
Thank you very much, Jean-Michel, and thank you, Khevin. We have reached the end of our webinar, and I would like to thank our speakers today, Jean-Michel, Félix, and Khevin Seebah, for their address on a perspective on digitalization. And thank you to our audience for joining in and for your lively participation and questions. Should you have any further questions or queries, please do not hesitate to reach out to us for a follow-up or for a conversation. So our next webinar will be next Tuesday, 13th of October, which will focus on payments, solutions and trends in the new normal. So do register for that if you haven't done so already. And I wish you a very good afternoon and have a great day. Goodbye.